Started at 8:32. I'm getting feedback.
Let me mute mine.
So this is the regular meeting of the Town of New Canaan Board of Selectmen, Tuesday, June 2nd. This is a virtual meeting. Any members of the public wishing to comment may do so by emailing, and we will read the comment. You email to BOS distribution spelled out at newcanaanct.gov, which is actually the second agenda item, but I started with that. So minutes of the last meeting, our meeting of May 19th. Good morning, Nick and Kit.
Morning.
Morning, Kev.
Any comments, corrections on the minutes?
None here.
I'm here.
I have two. One is on the farmer's market item. I asked Tom this morning what that sentence in the last paragraph, the last two sentences referred to, because I didn't recall discussing that. And he said, well, he added it because it was in the presentation. I view minutes to be something that reflects what the Board of Selectmen did at the meeting, and not to embellish it with things extraneous material. I suppose this is accurate, but you know, if it's not part of what the Board of Selectmen discussed, I wouldn't include it. This is the you see the two sentences: any further changes made, and also the town should provide masks to the market in case of pedestrians want to attend but don't have a mask. Do you recall discussing that? I mean, Tom said he probably added it from the presentation.
I kind of remember it. Maybe I'm imagining America, but I think we did discuss it.
Okay, I guess we can go back to the videotape. So the other thing is on the transfer station fees, we have been able to figure out a way to implement the fees. So I would note we're not going to. There's nothing to act on today. We are going to, like as with the parking fees, announce that we will defer the renewal date for the transfer station fees to September 1 from July 1, as other towns are doing in the midst of the COVID crisis, and we will charge a full fee for renewals as of September 1. Anybody wanting to buy a pass for the first time beginning, actually as of now, but you know, normally they go on sale for mid-June for renewals. We won't be selling any transfer station permits for renewals at the window. Instead, we'll deal with everybody by email and primarily, and hopefully, and by mail if necessary.
Well, the minutes say we would reconsider the transfer station fees at today's meeting.
Well, I know, but we're not going to do that. We figured out a way to implement the fees as we had adopted them. So I was dubious about the ability to implement, but since we can implement, and especially since we essentially have more time to get it accomplished by deferring, as we've seen other towns do, the renewal date, so that we have plenty of time to get it done. So I just note that the third item I'd like to note actually is when we approved the Waveney House courtyard restoration, there was subsequent media coverage and comments by the public, which severely criticized the Waveney Park Conservancy leadership. And I'd like to take the opportunity to again thank Caroline Garrity and Jane Gamber for the leadership they've shown in bringing this proposal forth. Obviously, in the midst of this pandemic, things don't always go as smoothly as you might expect them to. But the tree honoring Charlie Kelly in front can be incorporated into the plan. And I just thought the comments that were made about the Waveney Conservancy really were uncalled for. The Conservancy has invested more than $1 million in the first 5-year plan for the restoration of the grounds at Waveney house. And so I wanted to just take the opportunity to make that comment.
But that's not and I agree with you, Kevin, but that's not a request to amend the minutes of the last meeting.
No. So the only amendments I would make are to the farmer's market, to delete those two sentences unless we discover it was in fact discussed at the meeting. And we won't take up any action on the transfer station fees today. Okay, so with that, motion to approve the minutes.
As amended, second. As
Discussion.
potentially amended.
Discussion.
I'm trying to find the place where you are changing about the fees at the transfer station.
Well, you recall I said that we were having difficulty implementing.
Yeah, well, I'm just trying to find it in the minutes.
Under transfer station.
Solar, traffic, oil repair.
At the end of the financial update.
Financial update, okay.
It was a comment by me at the time, but as it turned out, we will be able to implement it. I could go into all the details, but it's really kind of unnecessary.
But just maybe being nitpicking, but if this is what we discussed at the time, we're changing our mind today, but.
Well, there was no agenda item at the time. There was no agenda item at the time. I was discussing in the context of the difficulty we were having implementing, so.
I don't see why it needs to be changed. I mean, but that's okay. That's what you want to do.
So, all in favor of adopting the minutes as amended? Okay. Again, if anyone from the public from Channel 79 is watching and wants to comment, you can email your comments to bosdistribution@newcanact.gov, and we will read them. I haven't seen any comments yet. Actually, Tom, do you have access to that mailbox? Do you get those, or just the three of us?
I do not have access to that. Well, wait a minute. Yes, I do, because I'm copied on them. So, want me to watch it?
Yeah, if you would, because my phone is not working from my town hall email today.
Okay, let me go look.
Anyway, so next item, maintenance or planning beds. Tiger or John, who's presenting this?
I will. This is our normal work that we usually do early April for all the planting beds around. We decided that we should, since almost all the town buildings were closed, that we would hold off on the work. With that said, it's increased the amounts a little bit, but it also has avoided the second springtime weeding of the beds. So we recommend that we recommend that we hire Greg's Landscaping for a $27,240, and we increased it to a 15% contingency from 10% of this time last year, due to the fact that the weeds are growing so rapidly right now.
Questions, comments for John?
So John, are we saving money because we would have done this twice in the spring?
I think we're probably pretty much breaking even. A little bit depends. Right now, if we stay at the $27,240, yes, we would be saving a little bit, but getting the prices over a week ago and seeing how the weeds have been growing in this last week, I wouldn't be surprised if we have to use a good part of that contingency.
Right.
What was this budget?
We budget $65,000 actually for taking care of beds and everything. So this is budgeted work.
I'm really delighted to see that the Vine Cottage is back on the.
Officially, the Vine Cottage is coming off in July. So this is money that is in the present year's budget. So presently, it's still going to be after July. It's coming out of our regular work.
Well, I'm glad it's going to get a little springtime lift.
Exactly. Yep. All the town buildings that are on our list, which I can go through all of them if you want me to, are definitely in need of the extra work.
Any further questions? Nick?
None
Yep.
here.
Okay, I move we approve the request from Parks Department to enter into a contract with Greg's Garden Center for $27,240 plus a contingency of $4,000
Second the motion.
for pruning and weed removal from plant beds at 10 locations. Seconded. Okay, discussion?
Nope.
All in favor? Aye. Okay,
Thank you.
thank you, John. Got a lot of grass to mow out there.
We sure do. We made great progress last week and this week. We're catching up. We still have a lot more to go, but by the end of this week, we'll be through everything. So we're doing better than we were 2 weeks ago. That's for sure.
Hey, John, you're on the ground there every day. Is usage up materially in our parks?
I believe definitely the amount of walkers going on the trails and the amount of cars that are up in Waveney. Yes, of course, where that's not happening is with less people using the athletic fields. You don't have those big groups, you don't have multiple teams coming to play and practice on the softball and the baseball fields, but there's a lot of people in the parks.
Thanks.
Public Works contracts. Is this Tigers? I'm sorry, Tiger. Who's doing this?
Bill for that.
Yep, I'm on. Can you hear me?
Yes, Bill.
Okay. So we have our first one here would be heating HVAC maintenance. Mark Garmella, M.A. Garmella. We went out to bid for all the services that we're going to discuss. We had, I believe it was 5 vendors walk through the buildings. 2 responded to the request. Garmella was the lowest. Garmella's also been is familiar with all our buildings. They've been doing it for a few years now, and they're a really good company. So we like approval to contract them to do the maintenance for the 5-year term.
Well, before that, remember we discussed the reason these were deferred from a prior meeting is that we were talking about duration of the contracts, and there's a memo on our tablets about what we choose to have with the contracts as far as 3 years, 5 years.
They're all based on it was specific in the bid documents that they'd be a 5-year term. We did that for a couple of reasons. One, to get some vendors' attention to make it worth their while to bid it, get them to the table, and also to get the best value on the service. Given a 5-year contract becomes a little bit more cost savings and more valuable to a contractor to go ahead and put his best numbers in.
Okay, Nick, did you see the memo on the tablets?
I did. I mean, it looks like for the 5 years, each of those 5 years is the same price, $53,570 per year times 5. So no increase. I guess my query what the contingency is if you've got kind of a flat fee. Bill?
Well, sometimes we tend to add buildings or take buildings off and what have you. I'm not sure what's going on at the police department, if we're going to move things around there and add something. So always like have a little contingency in there just in case we have to change something on a maintenance schedule.
What was the prior term?
Well,
what was the term of the prior deal? Sorry.
Well, the term of the prior deal was several years ago. The contract was approved, and the contract itself had an option in there to roll over. We can negotiate a new rate, but we'd roll the contract over. And we've been doing that for the past several years, and negotiating a new rate, over the years, and then getting that approved. So
and what was the last annual rate?
Well, it's not apples to apples because in this time here, I changed things around because we've added gas furnaces and what have you. So I took that out of the oil guy's hands and put it over to this guy. So if it was apples, well, if it was the same stuff, I took the gas stuff out. Last year's contract was $37,300. But because we added in probably 5, 6 more locations doing all the gas furnaces, cleaning and what have you, so it brought it up a little bit. So it takes it off the other guy. So the money I was spending on the oil guy doing is now going to be transferred over to the HVAC guy to take care of those boilers. So it's like I said, it's not exactly apples to apples, but.
Right.
Bill, I'm not following that. Excuse me, Kip. Converting to gas lowers your maintenance costs for the gas burner.
You still got maintenance. You still got to, you know, it's always labor. Labor is what you pay for here. And they always got to go in, clean nozzles. You got to inspect them. You got to do your, you know.
So I'm sorry. So you're actually saying that another contractor here was doing the oil burners, and now, so it's been shifted from that contract. Which contractor did the oil burners?
That was Raddick, but he's not on here because we're still trying to figure out where we're going to be come July with the new conversions or what have you. So I'll bring that to you at a later date. And it's going to be very small. It's probably going to be under $5,000.
What was it? What was it before?
Oh, off the top of my head, maybe
Bill?
8 or 9,000, something like that.
Well, I have something I'm trying to understand. We have 5 years in a lot of these contracts, and they're all subject to approval during the budgeting process. What is the definition of subject to approval? So if we don't like them, can we not hire them? If the economic circumstances change and the contract looks too expensive, can we not hire them? And there's no penalty?
Well, what we did was we're not allowed to contract for future years without some kind of language in there as long as the budgets are approved. As long as the budget is approved in my operating, then the contract will be renewed.
We put this in all multi-year contracts. The Board of Ed does the same thing, because you can't authorize future years appropriations.
Well, I just wonder, because everything seems to be in a state of change right now. And so I'm wondering how tight is this being tied up for 5 years?
Well, it's by contract. I mean, in good faith, we want to keep the, 5 years going with these guys. I don't necessarily think the rates are going to change at all. If anything, it's going the other way. The minimum wage is going up to $15 an hour over the next couple of years, and that's reflected in all these contracts. If anything, I think we're in a better position to lock these up now, because I just see everything going up going forward. Manufacturing firing back up and trying to produce, these supplies needed and what have you. I think it's going to go up. I've had conversations with these guys, and they're all willing to stick by their numbers right now. I think we're in a favorable position to move forward with these. To be honest with you, we're trying to get the biggest bang for our buck. We did what the board asked back last July. He asked us to go out to bid, and it was a lengthy bid process. That's why I did it earlier in the season, because it just took a long time to do it. Because the time you wrote these out, had people come out, do the walkthroughs, advertising, leveling everything, it takes time.
Yeah, I
and
understand.
then I did it before the budget, so I made sure I had the numbers going into this, so I had money in the budget to support these contracts.
I'm just wondering, in a world that is changing in ways a lot of us don't understand, at least I don't understand, that how much in concrete are these? What happens if the whole world is different 4 years from now?
Well, listen, I don't think anybody's want to get hurt here. I'm sure, the contractors can all, will, I think, have open-minded to if we had to change something for some reason. They want to continue doing business with the town. So I'm sure they'll if we have some concerns in the future, they'll come to the table and listen to it and work something out. I mean, they only benefit by, working with us to continue our relationship, which right now the relationships are really good and strong with all these contractors.
Yeah, I was just wondering legally what the stance was. What are the contingencies for being able, is the only way we are not able to go forward is if that line or the whole budget is not approved?
Well, I guess there's a line item in my budget for service contracts. I don't know. I mean, if you didn't approve the whole service contract line, then nothing happens. I mean, how far are you willing?
The whole package, it's a lot of money.
Yeah.
Anyway,
No, I agree with you. It's a lot of money, and that's why we're trying to save the money. I think, going the other way, I think it's just going to cost us more money over time if we don't get something secure for the term. You got to understand what's involved in some of this is that, people got to get familiar with the building. And when you have like a seasonal maintenance contract where they're only going to come 4 times, there's a learning curve there. And, we want to make sure that, they understand everything. And it's nice to have people get in there that know our buildings. We have great relationships with them. I know their employees because we've been working with them. So there's a lot of value you have to put on that, when I call these guys, tell them I'm having a problem, let's say at the highway garage on HVAC 2, they're familiar with it. We can talk a little bit about it. And so when they come down, they're not wasting time. They're not coming down doing an evaluation. They have an idea of what's going on with it because they're experienced with it. So there's a lot of value in all this stuff.
So to get to Kit's point, Bill, is this a specific line item in your operating budget, this particular contract?
No, it's grouped with all the service contracts. It's one lump sum on a line item, $180-something thousand, I think it is in that line item, and it covers all service contracts.
Bill, I have a question. Why is Town Hall almost $30,000 a year to maintain? Every other building is basically an oil burner or a gas.
Town Hall is a very complicated building. We have chillers. We have, I think, Joe, correct me if I'm wrong, I think it's like 80-something points of service in that building. It's a 3 days, then they come to service 3 days. There's a lot of stuff up in the ceilings that take time to get up into to service. It's a high-tech building. There's a lot of stuff going on in Town Hall.
Is that normal we have a brand new building? And
well, it doesn't matter whether it's brand new or not. It's maintenance. It's regardless. In order to keep it up and running and being like brand new, you have to do your maintenance. So maintenance won't change whether it's new or old. You're going to do the same tasks. You're going to go in. You're going to clean your coils. You're going to change your filters, inspection of belts. All the VAV units up in the ceiling have to be inspected and checked, and filters. We got units up in the ceiling for the vault. We have dehumidification systems. We have 2 big chillers outside. We have hot water heat exchangers in the basement, 2 boilers. It's a lot going on at Town Hall.
And this is just strictly maintenance. Anything that has to be repaired or et cetera is on top of it?
Yes. So what we typically do is you have the PM maintenance contracts in place, and then they come in, they'll do, unless it's an emergency, of course, they'll come in, they'll make a checklist, and if there's an issue, they'll contact me right away, and we'll make the repair. More often than not, usually a problem develops before PM or something like that, and PM's pretty good. It takes care of all the essentials of the building. Repairs come into play when something actually goes to a failure, whether it be a pump or something, and obviously it's usually unknown that something's failing internally, an electric motor or what have you.
So again, back to I'm just trying to drill down as to the line item and what that comprises. What is the size of the line item pertinent to this particular contract? What's the total amount of funding?
Well, do you have that in front of you? Want me to go ballpark? I think it's like $180,000 or $200,000 or something like that.
Okay.
Somewhere in that area. It's up there.
Let me pull it up.
But it also includes all the service contracts. Cleaning is a separate line item.
Right. This is all preventive maintenance?
This is all preventive maintenance, yeah.
That line item.
Service contracts, for the most part, it's all preventive maintenance. There's a couple of, yeah, I guess so, because facility dude's in there too, and that's part of the preventive maintenance stuff because it keeps track of all our work. So, yeah.
Okay, so this is about a quarter, 25% or so of the overall line item spend at 56,000. Maybe
Bill,
more.
what account is that? I can give you the dollar.
It's service contracts, I believe.
In the buildings? Town
Yeah,
buildings?
yeah, 154,306.
Okay, so it's a third. More than a third. So I guess, Kit, to answer your question, right? And you know, it's a good question. What is contingent of funding approval mean, quote unquote? So I guess as part of the budget process, if we were to tell Bill, you need to cut your budget $30,000, $40,000, you could point to this language. Now, this is a memorandum. It's not a contract. So I'd like to see the actual form of contract.
It's the standard town contract. Yeah, it's a standard contract, town contract that we always use.
Okay.
I mean,
Okay.
you know,
No, but Nick, it is a 5-year contract. The only issue is if for some reason we're going to be in business, so the money's going to be appropriated. This is a standard clause in any multi-year contract. So I don't know, but it is a 5-year contract.
Understood. I'm just trying to get to Kit's point as to, to what extent are we locked in? Because there is that standard language contingent funding approval. And it's unclear as to essentially what that means. Because if we were to drastically, if we were, God forbid, have to drastically reduce our operating budget across the whole town, how would that implicate this contract?
But these are the kinds of things you don't have much choice. We have to maintain buildings. We have to clean the building. We have to.
I'm just trying to help answer Kit's question,
which I really appreciate. Thank you.
And this is a standard agreement. We did this in the Board of Ed. You have multi-year contracts, but I think it's fair. And kids, look, the world is falling apart. 2020. I mean, and so asking these types of these types of questions is fair.
Well, I'm interested in seeing the contract.
Do these contracts renew on July 1?
They're going to effect July 1. As of now, June 30th, everything stops because our contracts all expire on everything.
I mean, I can tell you as a lawyer, the law is changing because of COVID-19 in terms of contractual obligations, exclusions, exceptions, clauses, language. I see language every day with respect to COVID-19 related issues and how that pertains to legal, to contracts.
I'm not sure, Nick, though. These are basic maintenance agreements. These generators.
Understood, Kevin. I understand that, but the world is very different today than it was a year ago or 6 months ago. That's all.
I don't understand how the escalations of these are mainly because of minimum wage.
I understand, right? And actually, I think this sounds like a pretty good. I don't know if that plug number is 53,000. I mean, I think it sounds like it's materially higher than what we were paying before. But it's a 5-year deal, and it assumes labor cost changes going up and perhaps going up further in the out years. I don't know.
Well,
So,
Bill, let me ask Bill this question. Could we do all these as 2-year deals, or were they?
I talked to the contractors, and they all based their pricing on 5 years to spread it out. Some of the reasoning is that they may have to add some help that they want to kind of encumber that, and also some additional equipment and certain contracts they're going to have to purchase. So, and like the cleaning guy, when I talked to him, he's trying to soften the blow by spreading the change out over 5 years with rates going up in the cleaning industry and everything. So, so far.
How about 3 years?
He said, well, the cleaning guy said no. I can talk to these other people. and see what they want to do.
Hey, Bill, what percentage of our town contracts for services rendered are 5-year deals?
This is the beginning of what we wanted to do. Again, at the direction, we're trying to get the best value and get people to the table, because you understand it's difficult to get these people to the table and to bid it. I have at a cleaning guy, out of the HVAC guys, I had 5 contractors show through the walkthrough. I had 3 of them walk away. Cleaning contract, I had 5 people show up. 1 didn't bid. 1 ended up getting a contract to clean a new mall and pulled his bid out and didn't give us a number. So it's really hard attracting people to do government work. There's a lot going on out there. And it puts me in a hard position, because it's like, if I come, like even at some of these, I have one, I think in the generator contract, only 1 guy shows up. No one else is interested. And I don't know if these guys are doing territorial games or whatever. I have no control over that. But in order to get the best value again to the town, I'm trying to make it attractive to get people to the table, and to keep the number down by giving them multiple year contract.
Do we normally just have 1-year contracts? Is that?
So we normally have 1 year with the option to roll it over. So like, again, Garmella's been doing work for us for quite a few years now, and the contract's always rolled over every year, because it was allowed in the contract, in the language that, it gave us the option to renegotiate. If you wanted to really, jack up the prices, we wouldn't renew. We've been fortunate over the past few years. I've been holding everybody's hands to the fire. I've been telling them, if you raise the rates, then I'm going out to bid. So over the past several years, no one's raised their rates on us. And, because I had that control over them by saying, listen, if you don't raise your rates, everything stays flat, then there's no reason for me to go out to bid, because it was already approved, a year or 2 years ago. And we went into it that way, and it was working really well, because a lot of these guys wanted to keep their, foot in the door, because with preventive maintenance comes some repairs and what have you. And it was a steady income for these guys to keep a couple guys on staff. But, we, at your request, we went out and rebid everything, and it kind of took the ball out of our court at this point, because we have to accept the bids.
Do we have the option to not contract with these fellows and keep the current vendors?
I think you have a legal problem with that one. I mean, how do you do that, Kevin? I mean, would I go and say, okay, your bid was great, you asked for more money, but we're not going to do it. We want to keep your last year rates. I don't think that's going to go over very well. I don't think we have a whole lot of. I think there's some legal issues here, to be honest with you. I'm trying
to figure out what we're trying to address here. I mean, we're concerned about. Again, Kit, this is sort of in reaction to the concern that we always should go out to bid on things, and especially with the cleaning services, we found it wasn't to our advantage. So now we're living with kind of having checked the market and giving people an opportunity to.
One thing you got to keep in mind with most of these contracts, it's all labor driven. The materials for doing PM stuff is really not that great. Filters and stuff, it's a small cost. It's all about the labor rates in Fairfield County. And to give you an example, we had one for this particular contract, HVAC, we had one contractor from Stanford bid it. He was $30,000 higher based on labor. The guy that we're asking to be contracted is out of Trumbull. So the difference between Stanford and Trumbull labor rates is $30,000 a year.
I guess where my concern has come from is that we never used to do it this way. We are proposing to do it now. I notice not on this contract, but on later contracts, that the rate of increase is greater than inflation. And
because
you're going to say it's labor costs.
So it's labor costs because of the commitment to $15 minimum wage. That's happening in Connecticut across the board.
But I would imagine that some of these people are technicians and are not really.
The minimum pushes everybody else up.
It pushes everybody else up, and you got to remember, these companies offer health care to all their employees, and that's going up too. So it's all built into these numbers. You have to look at the big picture of everything. It's not a fun picture to look at. I agree with you, but that's the way we are. That's the way it's going all around the country.
The trouble is too, when you look at 5-year contracts, the numbers kind of startle you with 5 years versus just looking at 1 year annual costs. So
It does, but it also gives you a good idea of budgeting for the next 5 years, what we're also looking at.
right,
As opposed to going out every year for a new contract. So in order for me to put a number into the budget, we start our budget stuff as early as I think November now. And that means I'd have to literally start in July going out for next year, and everybody's guessing at what's going to happen next year. It's a tough thing. Knowing it 5 years in advance is nice. Just like when we buy our fuel, our energy stuff, we always, buy future years, so we know what our budget is looking like over the next year or two.
Look, I'm generally comfortable with multi-year contracts, and I'm familiar with the town's specimen contract, although I'd like to see it again. So if someone could send that to me, that would be great. But I believe that if the world comes to an end in a year fiscally and we need to slash our operating budgets, we could rely on that event to get out of this contract.
I don't think that's practical, Nick. Again, they're labor driven. Those are
what's not practical? Sorry, Kevin. I'm running out of gas. I need to
get out of the contracts. I mean, there is a good faith involved in terms of signing a 5-year deal. It's good faith on both sides. I mean, they've done their numbers, largely driven by labor costs, which are statutory, not anything people can control. As far as the minimum wage, which drives, we know it drives all the scale up the ladder. So we can't go into this thinking we're going to simply say, "Oh, we didn't appropriate the money," because we're going to have to appropriate the money to do maintenance.
Well, if we're going to sign 5-year contracts, I think it would be really good to be able to lock down what that means, definition of subject to. And I don't know how fast that needs to happen. You say it needs to happen before July 1, true?
Kevin, just going by your logic, why do we have the language contingent of funding approval?
Because
I'm not talking about bad faith.
Because Doug
will always act in good faith.
Doug Lamonti says we cannot sign an agreement for multi-years without putting that language in, because we don't have appropriated money for future years. We can't authorize something that the funding.
I understand that. So why put them?
Because Doug Lamonti says don't sign a contract without that language.
Okay, so Doug Lamonti knows everything. Right?
Well, hey, Bill, you explain it. I mean,
Well, we've been doing this for years. We always knew we cannot have a contract for next year if the funds have not been approved. So that statement is just simply stating that, provided that the budget items are approved during our budget process, the funds are available, then the contract is whole.
And it is not evidence of bad faith if things go to hell a year from now fiscally. I don't believe it's bad faith on the part of the town to say we're slashing our budgets. And all multi-year contracts are subject to potential change. I'm just saying that. Sorry.
I understand you want the language. The reality is that if it gets that bad, these guys don't want to lose business town. They'll come to the table. They'll talk.
Right.
We've done
That's exactly right, Bill. That's the right answer, Bill. That's the right answer.
They don't want to work with us. We do the contracts because it's an obligation set for it. If we didn't have to use contracts, we can hire people. That would be great, but that doesn't always work, right? So
if things go south, we'll all get along here, I think.
Absolutely.
And that's the answer to Kit's question.
If things go south for us, we're not the only ones things are going south for. It's going to be a whole lot of communities in the same boat, and there'll be stuff out there. And again, we have great relationships with all these vendors. They don't want to go away. They want to stay here forever. They'll work with us. They always have.
Right. When you look at a contract, every word matters, and every word or words mean something, and that's just sorry.
So bottom line, what are we saying we're doing here?
I'm supportive of this contract. I think Bill, it sounds like you've done your diligence. You've had a bunch of people come in. Some people have said, no, we don't want to touch this. Yes, it's a high number, but the number is static for a 5-year period. Again, if things go south, all bets are off the table. from the town side, from the service provider side. I'm okay with this contract.
I'll vote for it too. I would, however, really like to see the contract and see what that line says verbatim.
Doug Lamonti writes the language, and it's in every contract we have this more than 1 year.
And we always, just so you know that we, like a lot of times these vendors, they come, they bring their contract. We usually don't accept their contracts, very rarely. Our town attorneys always wrote the contracts on our half. We want to have control of the contract language. We don't want a vendor coming in with that control. We want it. And that's why we have our internal contracts for these types of services.
I hear you. And I also think that First Selectman Moynihan's point about town hall seeming out of sync with the rest of the buildings is really worth re-examining.
I'd like to re-examine what, a comparable building. I mean, we built a brand new building and it costs a heck of a lot of money to operate.
Town hall, it does cost a lot of money to operate. It's a very complicated building, very complicated. And just understand, it's also energy efficient, and energy efficient does not always mean cost efficient. There's a lot of mechanical stuff in that building, a lot.
But we leave the lights on 24 hours a day. I mean, there's things that I don't quite understand about this building, but.
Yeah, there was some fire code and building code things we have to deal with. But we also converted everything to LED, and we just did some little projects like that, trying to bring down, of course, the solar. But as far as the mechanical stuff, all your mechanical equipment has a shelf life. It gets wear and tear. We try to keep the maintenance going on it to get the longest life out of it, and that's what we're doing. You got to understand, when we have to get up in the ceiling, it's labor intense. You got to get 2 guys up on ladders, take ceiling tiles down, get up to the equipment, which is 10, 12 feet up in the ceiling, to work on it. And there's 40-something of them, I think, or 20-something of those units. And then there's another 70 units in the old building. Everything has to have their hands. They have to touch everything to maintain.
I'll deal with that later. That's not a comment from the public.
Okay.
Look, I think this conversation is a good one because all of these other agenda items are multi-year contracts.
Right.
I think this discussion is about all of them.
Right.
So anyway, shall we take each contract individually? I mean, Bill's explained the heating, ventilation, HVAC. Pardon me. Fire sprinklers are pretty straightforward, and generators are pretty straightforward. Pest control is pretty straightforward, and cleaning services is the one we can't get walloped on. So, you want to talk about them individually, or do you have questions about the other ones?
Same question. So they went out to bid. We're switching from 1 year to 5 year. We have that clause in the contracts, which I'm interested in seeing. And escalation is because of labor.
So, right, but we got to vote on the contracts.
Yeah, so I'm saying, to me, until we get to cleaning, it's probably all the same thing.
Should I make a motion that we adopt all 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of these contracts as presented on our tablets and in the agenda?
1, 2, 4. Maybe we better go through one by one.
I think we should go through each one.
All right, I move we approve a contract with M.A. Garmella for a total of $281,242, including the contingency for a 5-year HVAC preventive maintenance contract for a ton of town buildings.
I second the motion.
Discussion.
Already.
All in favor? Aye. Okay. I move we approve a contract with Fairfield County Sprinkler for a total of $29,069.80, which includes a contingency for a 5-year fire sprinkler system maintenance contract for a ton of town buildings, subject to a clause which says it's subject to appropriation in future years.
So, Bill, how come this went up 22 to 23 materially?
We have a current contract with the original installer that expires in 22. So the first 2 years or a little less. Their third year out, it goes up because it takes on town hall.
Okay.
Town hall is a big system.
Yep.
Overall, the cost of that service has actually gone down.
Okay.
Because even now, compared to last year, if you remove the town hall, it went down. It was 6180, so it goes down to 4350. Apples to apples. So it's actually gotten less. Fairfield County is a great company too. They used to do our buildings years ago. Then they lost a bid, and then they came back and got it. So that's where we are.
Do I have a second?
Just one question. So Town Hall wasn't on a contract for their sprinklers until?
We had a contract actually so the original, I think the contract, that one was for 3 years actually. That was one for the sprinklers at Town Hall being so elaborate with the 5 different systems. And that was the original installer. We decided to keep them on to do some of the maintenance because they knew where everything was. And that's always a good thing to have, because a lot of times when you get a brand new building and then you don't have your same contracts come back and there's a problem, you scratch your head trying to figure out where to go. So their contract, again, like it says, expires on 2022.
Okay.
And 2023, then Fairfield County will pick it up. And that's a good thing. By that time, I don't need the original guy, and actually the new guy becomes less expensive at that point too. So.
Do I have a second for this contract?
Second.
Further discussion?
Not here.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
I move we approve a contract with Northeast Generator for a total of $31,274.25 for a 5-year generator preventive maintenance contract for a ton of town buildings, subject to a clause that says it has subject to future appropriation. Second.
Second here.
Discussion? All in favor? Pest control. I move we approve a contract with ABC Exterminating for a total of $80,265.15, which includes a contingency for a 5-year pest control preventive maintenance contract for a ton of town buildings. I personally observed the pest control guys coming into town hall, so I know this is a service we need. And
The pests like your office, I understand, the little red ones.
Yeah, boy, we get a lot of bugs in this building for a new building. Actually, this is the old part of the building. Take that back.
There's a lot of pests in the building, huh?
When you keep old windows, you get a lot of bugs coming through. So, do I have a second?
Second here.
Discussion? All in favor of pests? Thank you. Finally, cleaning services. I move we approve a contract with Jan Pro of Southern Connecticut for a total of, I hate the 5-year number, $1,115,428.29, which includes a contingency for a 5-year cleaning services contract for various town buildings, subject to a clause which says its future years are subject to appropriation. Do I have a second?
A second here, but I do have discussion.
Okay, I would ask one question. We're having increased COVID costs right now. Are these built into this, or?
Okay, so no, they're not built into that. And we had some pricing sent over just to pick up on the COVID cleaning, which is a lot less expensive than we're currently paying with the current contractor. So my thought is I'd rather have 2 contracts if we do this. We do the basic cleaning one for 5 years. That doesn't get changed. And then we can have a more flexible agreement with the COVID cleaning. I spoke to the GM Pro yesterday. He's all favor for that. He says that sounds like the best thing to do, because then that'll have all the options of getting us to stop at any point, add a building, take a building out, and all that with the COVID cleaning. We don't know where COVID cleaning is going, right? And disinfecting. Right now, we're being very proactive. And God willing, hopefully after this fall, we can taper back a little bit on that and maybe even eliminate some of it. So,
and possibly this is reimbursable with federal funds.
The COVID cleaning is, and that's another reason why I want to keep a separate contract, because FEMA loves contracts. And and they love the ability for us municipalities to control those contracts. So keeping it totally separate keeps it nice and clean. And then, yes, to your point, it is a reimbursable expense.
So from March, when we started the increased cleaning, was $9,000 a month?
Yeah. Yep. And we kept, and Jill set that right up from day one. They invoiced us totally separate from that. And all the agreements are totally separate from the original, our base contract. So again, I'm actually working on it now, you know, getting all that stuff into the FEMA application.
But we're saving money, Bill, on the touch point cleaning with the new contract.
Correct. You cracked quite a bit of money. Yes, he came in with a really good rate. He gave us a lot of buildings, like all the seasonal buildings and stuff, no charge. He's not going to charge us additional for the train station. The pool, no additional charge because he's there. The only thing he said, the agreement was, if as long as I supply him that product, because he's responsible for supplying products, he said, you supply me the disinfecting product, he says, I'll do no charge, and I'll do it a lot less. And we have a better purchasing power to buy those products in the private sector right now, and we have a big stock of it, anticipating disinfecting for a while. So I think it's a good deal, a win-win right there.
And then the difference in year one for the standard cleaning of all of our buildings is only $280 different than what we're currently paying, right?
Correct.
That was my next question, Tiger. So you're saying that the budget for 2021 for that year, which is about 170,000, 175,000, something like that.
Print it out so I can read it.
It's only that number, whatever it is, will be $200 or $300 more than this present fiscal year, which ends.
That's for our standard buildings. It doesn't include the seasonal properties, but for our standard 10 buildings that we clean, it's,
right.
It was 140,800. Excuse me, it was 140,520. It'll be 140,800. So there's a $280 difference. There is a difference to the seasonal work. However, as Bill mentioned, on the seasonal properties, the dog park, the pool, things like that, he's not going to charge us any additional money for the touch point cleaning. So we're actually going to save money there.
Right.
So while it is more expensive, substantially more expensive to do the seasonal work, it's not, we're going to save money on the touch point cleaning throughout the entire summer. So.
And the increases are minimum wage driven?
Correct. It increases minimum wage driven. And also to point out on the seasonal stuff, we have flexibility because it was a per day rate, and the days change every year depending on the weather. And so we have flexibility. If one year it may be 180 days for a bathroom, the following year might be 150 days. So that's a flexible part of this agreement. So, we're looking at the contract for the worst case scenario based on what the Parks and Rec would love to have the park open for. And if you were to go look at that now, and if COVID shuts down our public bathrooms, then we're not paying to clean those. They're locked down, and then we don't pay that. So that's all part of this agreement.
So unlike the HVAC contract, which has a set rate for 5 years,
yeah,
and presumably the minimum wage increase is built into that set rate. This presupposes about a 10,000 a year increase for the 5-year term, correct?
Right. And he tried to, kind of like spread it over to 5 years with all the additional fees he's getting. And, when I spoke to him yesterday, the cleaning industry is struggling right now because trying to get help isn't easy all of a sudden. Imagine that, right? No one wants to come because of the COVID. So he's being forced to pay more money to his employees, even above minimum wage, and to try to attract new employees, he has to pay a little bit more. I think you're going to see that across the board with the cleaning industry. I think they're going to be viewed a little differently going forward. So, but he's still holding the numbers. He's eager because he needs to purchase stuff and make sure he's got the team in place. So.
Where is the Waveney Park? And I should know this. The Waveney Park dog park bathroom. I didn't know we had one.
Oh, it's part of the paddle tennis building. There's an exterior entrance there.
Oh, so it's a shared expense. So
that building, believe it or not, is it's a pretty busy building. because every season something different's happening. You may think it's slow in the summer. Well, the building itself is slow, but the bathroom is heavily used, and the traffic through there is heavily used. And then it goes into the fall, then the whole building's being used. So it's used quite a bit and needs a lot of cleaning maintenance too, to be honest with you.
I'm sure that's true, but we share that expense with the Waveney Park Lodge, true?
It's still the same building, but it's, yeah, there's there's additional fees in there when the lodge actually goes into full swing, because now they're cleaning the whole building, because that's when all the paddle tennis folks are using the living room, I guess, and the kitchen area and all that. So it's more maintenance during the fall and winter than it is during the summer, basically.
We don't allocate maintenance contracts to the respective budgets, so it's all your budget.
It's all my budget. Yeah, years ago it was all over the place, and it became a managing nightmare for everybody. And so we, when we really created the whole town buildings as one department, we consolidated everything, stopped having, at one point I think we had about 10 different electricians working on everybody's different building. It was their nightmare. So we consolidated everything to town buildings.
And the contingency amount is for?
Well, in the cleaning thing, so we have things that do change. We don't, that'll get us carpet cleaning when we need it on an as-needed basis. There's times when we have to send a cleaning crew into the jail cells because of things that happen in jail cells overnight for some prisoners.
Okay.
Yeah, stuff like that. Sometimes we want to power wash. You know, it's like for instance, the Lapham Community Center would like their back patio power wash this season. So that would be part of a contingency.
Thank you.
Did I get a second?
Second.
Further discussion?
Not here.
All in favor? Wow. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bill.
Well, if this works out, we don't have to worry about this for 5 more years. How's that?
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
New fencing. I'm approval of a request from Public Works on a contract to replace existing metal picket fence with custom wood and vinyl fence as part of the Jelliff Mill Bridge project. I see who's doing this. Joe.
Good
Joe
morning.
Zagorowski. The masked man there.
Good morning. So this is something that's been going on for a while. We finished the bridge project, and the state of Connecticut DOT standard railing is generally like a pool fence, and the condo association really didn't like that, and nor did I or anyone in Public Works. So we wanted to match the condo association, their white vinyl picket fence, and bring it over to the bridge so it would look seamless.
So we're paying for a fence on a bridge that the state reimburses how much for?
80%.
How big was the bridge? Was it a $2 million contract?
Oh, it was a $2 million contract. They replaced we were reimbursed for 80%.
And they put up a fence that people don't like. Or I should say, we put up a fence.
We put up a fence that no one liked. So it's part of their DOT standard specifications. So we were required, the actual fence that we want to put up isn't something that would be subject to be reimbursable. So we had to put it up at the time to keep everyone safe. And now we want to replace it now that we're at the end of the contract.
Is this optional? I mean, we're doing this for the neighbors?
Well, we're doing this for the town. The neighbors will benefit from it as well. But if you, I can show pictures. It's basically transitions from a nice white New England cross fence to a black pool fence. And this is something that we do have money in the budget, and it's part of the Jelliff Mill Condo Association met with us several times throughout the project and with various requests. And this is the only request that we agreed to with them. And they've also included, they put in about $30,000 worth of landscaping over in that right of way. So this was our part of that deal.
Okay, I move we approve this contract with Gardner and Larson Homes for $74.50 to replace a existing metal picket fence with a custom wood and vinyl fence as part of the JLF Mill Ridge project. Do I have a second?
Second here.
Discussion?
No.
All in favor? Thank you, Joe.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now we have we've had some vacancies on the Planning and Zoning Commission, and therefore Phil Williams, who's currently an alternate, I'm nominating Bill to take Bill Rebden's place, who resigned to move out of town. Art Cassavant, who's a fellow that both Nick and I know, and who's a banker specializing in affordable housing funding, and who would replace Phil's alternate slot, and then Claire Gisconia would become a regular member, replacing Laszlo Papp. And that then leaves a vacancy on for Claire's alternate slot, and I would ask the DTC to give us a nominee for a future meeting. Any discussion about these? I think Art Cassavant will be a great addition to the commission.
I called and spoke with him yesterday, and he does sound wonderful.
So I move that we make these appointments. Do I have a second?
Second here.
Third.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Okay. Purchasing policy. Now, I didn't realize until yesterday that neither Nick nor Kit have talked to Tiger and Lunda. So I'm not sure we're prepared to take this up.
I don't think we are.
Well, but if you have any questions, or you should be talking to Lunda and Tiger, who are the two primary drafters of this policy. As I may have mentioned at the last meeting, it went to the advisory committee on buildings and infrastructure. We got some very helpful comments from members of that committee. This is putting in place something we've never had before as a Board of Selectmen policy, building on the prior guidance in the finance department. But I don't think we're ready to have a discussion or move to approve this until you have had any questions answered by Linda and Tiger, or given your own comments. Or so, Nick, do you think are we ready to talk about this, or would you take some more time? And
I'd like more time, Kevin. I've actually been obtaining some specimen contracts from other places.
I've got a whole file. I got a whole file of things we researched all the surrounding towns on, or someone did. I think what's her name? Sandy Dennis had done this. This project started more than a year ago with under Sandy, when the audit committee was recommending or suggesting we should have a policy by the Board of Selectmen, or at least review our purchasing policy.
I've got 3 or 4 contracts, but I might avail myself of her file if that's okay with you.
Absolutely. So I think we should take this up in 2 weeks, but you really have to spend time with Linda and Tiger separately or together to try to. I've done that twice now, and in preparation for the Building Advisory Committee meeting, then again yesterday. But I didn't realize you have not been in touch with them until. So why don't we defer on action on this until for 2 weeks?
Yeah, that's fine.
It would also be great if we had what we're approving on our tablets.
This is not on the tablets, Sam? It was sent to you, and both the marked copy that with comments from the advisory committee.
I think it was on the tablet for the last meeting. Maybe it didn't make it for this one.
We can get it uploaded. And maybe just another comment, because this was something that was mentioned in the audit last year. If we could do it in 2 weeks so that when they do the June 30th audit, they can check it as having been done this fiscal year, so it doesn't become a comment in next year's audit, that'd be extremely helpful.
Absolutely.
Okay, so I move that we defer action on that. Second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Okay, tax overpayments. I actually didn't look at the tablet for this.
By the way, just for the record, Tom, you're right. It was on the last, excuse me, the tablet for the prior meeting.
Tax overpayments, we have a total of $22,000, primarily real estate. 2 items for real estate, 4 items for motor vehicle. Any comments or questions? I move we approve the refunds for tax overpayments on our tablets.
Second here.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
That's unanimous, Tom. General matters. Actually, so I haven't, Tom, have you received any comments from the public? The email again, members of the public were invited to email comments. Tom did get a question from Mike Dinan, but I don't consider Mike Dinan nor Jack Kovac members of the public for these meetings because they don't live in town and they're not our public. I will always answer questions from the press outside the meeting, and I have my bi-weekly meeting on Thursday. So, Michael, I'll be happy to discuss this with you offline.
No other questions or comments.
So that leaves us general matters. On general matters, one thing I would note is we're announcing or have approved a town hall reopening plan. We plan to reopen town hall on June 22nd for by appointment only, and we will open town hall on July 6th to visitors with various safety protocols in place. We plan to move the health department to Vine Cottage for the summer to spread people out more. That would probably, I did have an opportunity on Sunday to bump into Arnold Karp, and I said, where do we stand on Vine Cottage as the respondent to our RFP, and they thought we were too busy to talk about this, but I want to get that back on the table. But in the meantime, we're going to put the health department three employees there to be able to have more room on the first floor of town hall for COVID distancing purposes. And then tax and sewer fee payments will be made by mail or drop box only. So as the tax payment season begins, we won't be receiving payments at the window. There'll be a drop box at the door, and people can mail in their tax payments and their sewer fee. I would remind people that the tax deferral deadline for applying is June 30th. There's no late filings permitted, so people have to focus on whether they're going to ask for deferral in writing. Actually, it's done online, Linda, right? Only online.
It's a downloadable form, but they do mail it in. You scan it in.
Oh, good to know.
Because it does require a signature.
Okay. I thought it was an online.
Does it need to be mailed? Is it has to be received by June 30th, or can be mailed?
Postmarked by
July 1.
July 1. And that's an affidavit, Linda?
Yes.
It's a request for deferral, and it makes certain representations.
Right. But it doesn't have to be notarized because it's not a legal document.
No, it doesn't have to be notarized.
Okay.
I should have noted that tax payments and sewer fees, we won't accept cash. So that being what I have, anybody want to discuss anything else about anything?
Are we going to get the band back together in person at some point, Kevin?
You know, there's a feeling in this building that people don't want to have public meetings yet. I think people may get over that. As I should have mentioned too, the results from our community testing are excellent. We have over 800 people have been tested, and I think the 785 results we've had are all negative for active COVID. So that's very good news. It indicates that the COVID virus is not very active in town. And relatively few people have tested positive for antibodies, which means people are also haven't built up an immunity because they never got the virus. So we'll continue that testing as long as it takes to get people comfortable. They have testing if they want it. We probably will go into a second round of testing later on the summer or into the fall so that we can confirm the incidents and have people comfortable about. Now, that doesn't mean we're letting down the guard. You know, we have these procedures for social distancing, which are mandated by the governor. Wearing masks when you can't maintain social distancing, although in downtown, both entering restaurants and retail stores, you have to wear a mask. Mask will be provided if you don't have one. On downtown, generally, if the street is crowded at 6 a.m., you don't need a mask, but at 10 a.m., the streets are generally crowded, so you should wear a mask and washing your hands. So those are the three things we need to continue to do to keep the virus at bay. And again, the only way the virus is going to walk in the door is by someone coming into town with it, as opposed to, or someone traveling out of town and coming back with it. So it's very good news. We have very little community transmission since March, and a very, very almost non-existent incidents that we've detected so far currently. That being said, the town hall folks are trying to get comfortable with having having us return entirely to normal. Most private businesses for office workers are continuing to, especially if you have to use public transportation to get to work or use elevators, buildings. People are reluctant to bring people back into common office buildings. We are essentially operating the town hall when we open it to people can only come to the first floor for meetings and or go to land use if they have land use business in the rear entrance. So any other?
I have just to say how grateful I am to be living in this town, because I think that it has been run so smoothly.
We have a great team, Kit. We have a great talent in this town. Actually, let me mention one other thing. So the advisory committee of private folks who have been meeting will meet again tomorrow. I did get a feedback from a landlord that they thought Nick and my comments about our agreeing to defer rent payments for the 7 town tenants was sort of landlord bashing. I didn't think Nick or I were bashing landlords. We did say we were trying to set an example of trying to help our local merchants survive. And I think in many cases, landlords are able to pass on some relief by virtue of asking for tax deferral. But when they certify tax deferral, they have to have given, there's some kind of percentage or formula, they have to give the benefit of deferral from the taxes to the tenants as well. So, and also the PPP rules were changed, although there's still a draft, but so that rent can be included in the formula as to what PPP funds, loan funds may be used for. And so I think if we did give the impression we're bashing landlords often have bank loans and mortgages, and if that's the case, they can't give relief. If their bank's not giving them relief, the tenant can't expect relief from the landlord. But I want to just make clear we weren't intending to bash landlords in town.
I completely agree. There was no intent to shame landlords in any sense. I think, as you put it, Kevin, we were just trying to set an example from the town standpoint. Look, we were able to do this. We understand that landlords are up against it too. As you said, they've got loans, they've got mortgages, and it's tough for everybody. So I actually have a question for Tiger. On Elm Street, Tiger, am I correct in understanding that we're going to take back some parking spots that no longer need to be striped? Tiger?
You're on mute.
So, okay. excuse me, so you're talking about the crosswalk issue, Nick?
Yes.
We have Maria and I had a meeting with the chairman of the police commission right before the virus kind of struck, actually here in this office, to bring forward a plan that would allow us to bump out around the crosswalk at Dunkin' Donuts. And if we did that, we could protect the pedestrian as they kind of walk through that area where people seem to be, parking and crossing over the crosswalk. He seemed to be amenable to that decision where if we bumped it out, we could protect the pedestrian and then we could gain back, Maria, correct me if I'm wrong, I think it was 3 or 5 spaces in the area. We couldn't do the intersection at South and Elm because that's an intersection, but the crosswalk at Dunkin' Donuts, since it wasn't an intersection, quote unquote, we could do a different measure and then feel confident that we would be protecting the pedestrian as they're entering the roadway, shortening the crossing distance, and then preventing cars from crossing over that area because they would actually have to mount the curb, and it would still be ADA accessible. That was where our problems trying to mitigate all the concerns in that area. We went through several different iterations, and then it just came down to the fact that we haven't had the opportunity to bring it forward to the police commission yet. We're hoping to bring it forward to them soon, and then we'll construct these bump outs in the area and then gain back a couple of spaces.
That's great. I would encourage you to do that. I mean, it's a win-win: safety, additional enhanced safety, and more parking spots.
Correct. We had during the last discussion we had with the police commission on the barricades going in. We did speak about that, and the feeling was, let's get the barricades in. Let's do this work now, and the barricades actually run through the area, so there's no parking at that point, right? So the thought was, let's do this for the interim, and then we can bring the further plan forward. And at the time we pull the barricades out, we institute this new these new bump outs, and then gain back a couple of spaces. Yeah, that's about where we stand.
Good.
On that subject, Nick, I would mention that talking about bashing people, I would take the opportunity to bash our State Department of Transportation, who didn't like our plastic barriers at Spiga. That section of the road, Main Street, is a double state road, 106 and 124, and in their wisdom, they objected to our plastic barriers and made us remove them. So in this instance, the state government proved themselves to be totally inflexible, and despite efforts by our assembly people, DOT operates by their own drummer. So
what was the reasoning? What was the reasoning from the?
They only allow concrete barriers on state roads, and even though the Tiger tried to prove to them that the plastic barriers, when filled with water, have been tested for safety at 25 miles an hour. Tigers at the but anyway.
Crash tested at a higher rate of speed, and they're approved by the Federal Highway Administration, and they're used in other states throughout the nation. Just they're not an approved material in Connecticut.
Yeah, but it doesn't matter because the State Department of Transportation, they don't care who bashes them, or they don't care about anybody's rationale. So we will make do with an alternative plan. I also, though, looking at other towns, I perhaps think we might try to do more, especially on Forest Street, to give them more space. Hopefully, June 20th, they're going to open up some percentage of indoor dining, but we might try to be more aggressive on giving the Forest Street restaurants more outdoor space. If we just use the sidewalk on the southern side, eastern side, I don't know what you call it, for pedestrian traffic, if that's possible. So, but I think the launch of the reopening by the merchants downtown and restaurants has gone very well, and you almost feel back to normal, but we're not back to normal. We got a new normal. So, okay. Anything else? Michael, feel free to call me, or I'll call you to answer your question. And with that, I make a motion to adjourn at 9:52. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Goodbye, all. Have a great
Take
day.
care.
Thank you.
Stay safe.
Mhm.